Thank you to everyone who's attending our presentation. I will be explaining the many trade-offs, social and ecological, in the Norwegian red king crab fishery that we have been working for several years with my colleague Brooks Kaiser. So, the red king crab was introduced to the Barents Sea by Soviet Union scientists in the 1960s as a potentially new fishing resource. As the species moved west, agreements between Russians and Norwegians allowed the species to spread and establish successfully. After some years of experimental fisheries, commercial fishing began in the beginning of the millennium. Norway allowed those fishers that had previously suffered from crab bycatches to commercially exploit the crab. Over the years, there have been ecological and economic transformations on the crab invasion, which include a profitable quota system in eastern Finnmark and an open access fishery aimed at controlling spread in Western Finnmark, as well as significant investments in onshore infrastructure. In this paper, we explore these transformations with an eye to understanding the cascading effects to socio-ecological systems from ecosystem disruptors, in this case, a commodified invasive species. The following three elements of the red king crab invasion deepen the integration of the species into the socio-ecological system. First, there are low harvesting costs for the crab, especially in the quota managed area in eastern Finland, where densities are high. Second, the damages from the invasion remain uncertain, particularly those to the benthic habitat and the ecosystem services that flow from it. And third, there's ongoing infrastructure investments in onshore landing facilities, which together with the two previous elements all shape stakeholders' interest in Norway in favor of a long-term management of the fishery. And let's take a closer look at these three elements. In order to estimate harvesting costs, we first estimated the catch per unit of effort stock-dependent relationship. Having established a relationship between catch per unit effort and stock, we aggregate to an annual fleet level by creating a cost function weighted by vessel length each year. In this way, we estimated the fixed weighted average cost, and then using this in the fraction of quotas and harvest of every vessel, and after adjusting for inflation, we estimated the cost function. Moving on to what those low harvesting costs actually mean. Norway has seen a decline in the number of people working in fisheries as well as in the number of vessels deployed. This graph easily confirms this observation. Finnmark has been no exception to this declining trend, but their percentage to the total number of active vessels in the country started increasing soon after the opening of the commercial fishery for red king crab. Despite the initial bycatch problems in other traditional fisheries, the crab fishery grew significantly over the last decade and has permitted small fishing communities to grow. The initial purpose of the introduced quotas were regarded as a compensation for small-scale fishers who had previously suffered losses from bycatches. This map is just to give you an idea of the distribution of catches and the landings across Finnmark in the first years of the commercial fishery. Today's quota allocation, which you can also see here, maps partly the history of the crab fishery, with most of the quotas east of the 26 degrees line. The red king crab in Finnmark has given rise to a fishery that has revitalized small communities, but requires capital investments to sustain it. The increasing trend in harvested quantities and world market prices, especially for live crab, supports an increase in supply and calls for investments into new infrastructure that can support the upcoming industry. Today, there's at least 20 registered buyers and more than 30 receiving stations, which I have mapped here. I have also included the major road network, which is pretty scarce, as well as the airports. Despite several small airports in the area, there's only one that meets the requirements for live crab shipments. And the reason why the infrastructure network is important is because, especially for live crab exports, longer travel distances are more likely to increase mortality and decrease the quality of the delivered product. The fishery boon comes with ecological costs. Potential damages have been documented for several commercial and non-commercial species, including the Icelandic scallop, the lumpsucker, and the capeling. Spawning areas in the fjords may be at higher risk, but most research funding has gone into managing the commercial crab fishery rather than documenting the baseline or the consequences of impacts from the crab's establishment. The integrated role of private and public research focus in determining the transformation path is often a significant overlooked component. In this case, for example, stock surveys and assessments have focused on the quota zone, and this delays signals regarding the spread and promotes adaptation to over-containment of the invasive species. And I'll close by illustrating the bioeconomic trade-off in its simplest form, assuming linear damages. And I will also highlight, based on this analysis, that managers should be optimizing net benefits of total ecosystem productivity over time, and that path dependencies that commodify and concentrate the Barents need to be better understood. Thank you for your attention, and please reach out to us for any questions.